Alright, so for today's sculpt, I had an interesting idea. My nephew sent me a little concept for a character a while ago, because he was interested in game design and stuff like that, and he knew that I was doing character work, so he got inspired and he made this little concept. So I thought it would be cool to use his concept as inspiration for this sculpt and this character I'm gonna be making now. So I'm starting again kind of from scratch. I know I can use like a base mesh to start if I want it, but I prefer starting from scratch for these 50-minute sculpts, and I think 50 minutes is gonna be kind of the sweet spot for these sessions. This is again gonna be like a full character. I don't think I'll do a full body character every single time, and it's probably not going to be like a humanoid every single time either, but for this one it's again going to be a humanoid full figure. So sculpting in this manner, you know, like I did in the previous video, using Dynamesh and just starting from a sphere and just extruding or, you know, pushing and pulling. Like it usually looks pretty horrific until the I think the 10-15 minute mark. Then it starts, like, you start fleshing stuff out, and I'm trying to when I started off, or a while ago, I would get lost on like detailing out the head and not having anything, like not having any even shape blocked out in the lower body and stuff like that. So I'm kind of intentionally with these sessions trying to flesh everything out gradually, and then just have the level of detail build up slowly as well, because it's kind of one of my personal traps, that I get lost in a specific area and then I start obsessing about that area, and then I get done with that specific area and move on, and then it doesn't fit with the rest of the character, and, you know, working in isolation, basically, I don't think it's a good idea. So but that's one of the reasons I'm doing these 50-minute sessions as well, because it's kind of forcing me to end up with a character at the end of those 50 minutes that is presentable. So this character is basically just gonna be kind of organic, all organic. There's nothing hard surface on this character, which is kind of my wheelhouse. I do like hard surface a lot, but it is definitely still one of my weak spots. So I'm just more used to doing organic shapes and stuff like that. So it's just blocking stuff out here. I want to try something, or one of the things that I'm also trying to push with these sculpts is kind of figuring out a little bit of a I don't want to sound pretentious saying style, because, you know, I'm definitely not, like, there's a lot I feel like I have to still improve at, and I have to learn, and I look at a lot of reference of other artists, and, you know, just in general design and stuff like that, but at the same time I'm also interested in kind of trying stuff out and trying to figure out, like, kind of my own language, or stuff that I feel comfortable with and that I like as well, because in my professional work, so the work I do for clients, if I'm lucky, it's designs that I like and it's work that I like, but that's not always the case, so I don't always have that choice. So I feel like if I'm gonna spend, like, personal time working on assets or working on characters, it should be kind of in a style that I like, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do here as well. I'm trying to figure out, like, what is a style, like, in terms of the shape, proportion, that I like. And I know that it's not like hyper realistic stuff. I like seeing other people's, like, hyper realistic sculpts and, you know, characters, but for me, I'm kind of like this. Like, I that's what I did for quite a while when I was working at Crytek. and I just kind of got really bored with like hyper realistic stuff, especially because it ended up being related to scanning pipelines, and like I just got kind of burned doing that kind of stuff. So I'm much more drawn to stylized characters, and even more towards cartoon level kind of shapes. So I'm still trying to figure that out in my own kind of my own work, but I'm trying something with this character where I don't know if you noticed, but I gave him like these really heavy lower arms. It looks kind of weird and deformed at the moment, and one of the things that I'm struggling with a little bit is that on the one hand, to get like the volumes for a humanoid character to feel right, you kind of have to, or I think you kind of have to block out like the muscle groups and stuff like that. And when you do that, you do end up kind of automatically building realism, or you're kind of drawing from realism. And then you kind like if your goal is to make a cartoony character, then you're already kind of stepping away from that goal. So I found it important to, even though you start blocking out those like muscle shapes, that you have to remember what the final goal is of the character visually. And in this case, if it's going to be like heavily stylized and cartoony, then it's important that like those defined muscle groups and stuff like that I smooth those out, and I find the shape that isn't like because things can look really awkward if half the character has this kind of Pixar feel, and then parts of the character are like super defined muscle mass, and so I don't know if I really succeeded in that with this character. I think it's a little bit inconsistent in terms of style in the end, but it's something I'm aware of, so it's also one of the things I want to work at. And like I said, it's kind of what I used to do a lot, so I'm usually automatically drawn to like blocking stuff out for realistic purposes. So again, kind of struggling a little bit with the shoes, but I'm not really paying too much attention to it, so I'm just gonna like really roughly block them out and not worry about them too much. And with these 50-minute sculpts, I'm also not really, I tend to not want to like split stuff up in different pieces. Ideally, like the shoes, for example, I would have like a separate Z-tool or a separate object that is disconnected from the pants, so I can really like have the folds of the pants overlapping those shoes. And later on I'll be adding like, same for the belt actually here, but later on I'll be adding like a mask or a blindfold kind of thing on the character. And I thought about that for a bit, like if I should have it as a separate object, but then I figured these sculpts are not supposed to be like, they're kind of sketches, so I shouldn't spend too much time like dividing objects and then defining them individually. And it would I think it might kind of draw me to spend too much time on parts instead of spending time on the full character. So I intentionally keep everything as one solid dynameshed object. Another benefit of that is that I can also not increase the resolution too much. And when you use Dynamesh, you're kind of, the resolution of your topology is consistent throughout the whole mesh, as opposed to when you use Dynatopo or Sculptress. So I'm kind of forced not to go too high subdivision or too high res, which is also another good thing for sketching, because the moment you'll see at some point soon I'll start working on like the mouth area and the jaw and stuff like that, and that those areas I have the same amount of resolution that I have on the chest in terms of subdivision surfaces. So there's not that much topology to add detail like a mouth or lips, so I'm forced to kind of focus on like the general shapes and volumes, as opposed to like what you know, the micro folds of a lip, you know, that you have in lips or something is, which I think is good. It's a good practice. So, and hopefully by, you know, after a while of doing this, I'll have, I think part of it is kind of building like a visual library. I hear a lot of concept artists who practice sketching and drawing. They say that a lot, that what they're really doing is they're kind of building kind of a visual library, that when they then make the actual character for production, or, you know, they make a character that's for final detail character, they'll then have kind of practiced this type of shape, or, you know, this type of characters so many times through sketching it and blocking it out, that they building the actual character then just goes smoother and you know, it'll feel more fluid. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't think I explained it very well, but I don't want to get lost on that. So, but that's kind of what I'm doing here. I just want to kind of, well, I guess the simple way to say it is just practice. You know, it's just practice through repetition. So I think also in this character, like, on the one hand, I'm trying to kind of stay true to the essence of my nephew's concept. As rudimentary as that concept is, it does have a general, you know, look to it. And I definitely don't succeed in the face. You know, like the face, I kind of go off into something completely different. It definitely loses kind of the youth of that concept. And I see that now looking back at it. So, and it's the same with kind of the whole character. But, you know, it's a starting point. So with these kind of these sketches, I'm really just looking for something that sparks an interest or inspiration, and then just go with it. I don't want to really get stuck on doing something based on something and then really get locked into that, because then again that kind of defeats the purpose of building something that just for the kind of the fun of it and for the joy of it. And if I'm at any point like don't feel like I'm enjoying the process of doing these 50-minute characters or sculpts, then I know that I'm not going to do it anymore. Like today I had to work pretty late, and you know, I'm pretty tired at the end of the day, so I had a lot of reason like not to do this one, which would have been kind of a big failure, because I said I was going to try and do one every day, and it's like the second day, so, you know, I don't want to fail on the second day. But at the same time, I also enjoyed the previous one, and I was looking forward to this specific idea of making this character. So if I didn't have that kind of interest in the idea, and if I hadn't enjoyed the previous session, then it would have been much less likely that I would have done this one. So I definitely want to make sure that with these sessions that I enjoy the topic and the actual process. So this is the point where I was contemplating for a second to have the blindfold as a separate piece, but I thought, screw it, I'm just gonna sculpt it on top of the geometry. I do duplicate the subtool just in case if I want to like go back. There's other ways of doing that, like you can make a morph target and stuff like that, but when you make a morph target, I don't think you can use the Dynamesh anymore, because then you just screw up the morph target. So it would have been better like if I wanted to define the whole brow area to then have the mask as a separate object. But again, this is just kind of sketching, and I'm also keeping it symmetrical, which is kind of looking a little bit awkward doing the hair. But at this point, I think I'm at 45 minutes, so I know that I want to try and keep it around 50 minutes, definitely less than an hour, so I don't want to spend too much time on details. So talking about details, I think this is where I kind of missed out a little bit. Like I feel like I have the general shape and kind of the form language of the character that I want. And then the big shapes are there, and I have a little bit of like folds on the pants, like secondary shapes. But then at the end of the sculpt, I do feel that the character is a little bit boring, like it's missing some stuff. Basically like the tertiary shapes, or like the third level of detail. And like it would have just been like a few little things, like maybe like a big, like well, not a big, like kind of a scar or something on his chest to break the symmetry a little bit, or maybe just like I don't know, like a necklace or a pouch, or you know, maybe a belt across his chest, or a little kind of sweat bracelet kind of thingy, like stuff like that. Because now I feel like at the end of this sculpt I'll have a good base for, you know, going further. So the end result does look a little bit like kind of like a base mesh, as opposed to an interesting looking character. So the whole thing now, like I'm trying to like now at this point fix the proportions a little bit, because I do end up again with this kind of a little bit of a diaper feel, and also the legs being a bit too short. I do start off with that idea of like having like a really big upper body and kind of shorter legs. It's something that I'm trying to make work for my character style, but it's not really working out with this one. So and especially because of the arms, the lower arms having that volume as well, it starts looking a little bit awkward. And even with like really cartoony characters, I think you still have to, you know, you still have to hit that balance where you feel that the character won't fall over, you know, literally that the character will have balance, and that the lower body can support the upper body and stuff like that. Otherwise it'll just look too comical. So I think at this point I'm like pretty much done. I'm just gonna pull out the legs a little bit, but that's about it. I hope again this is a useful video for you guys. It's definitely useful for me, and I'm gonna continue, or at least I'm gonna try to continue doing these daily 50-minute sculpts